All right, welcome to the Thoughts from the Trail with Mark Pruitt, and today we have a very special guest, my good friend, Mr. Johnny Walker. Not to be confused with Johnny Walker Red. Maybe Johnny Walker Blue, or Johnny Walker Black, or Johnny Walker Sapphire, or which one are you?
Let's go with a blue label. That's the good stuff. I'm the good stuff.
Johnny Walker Blue Label. We're going to go with the good stuff. Anyway,
Good
Johnny
stuff.
is up in Arkansas, and we're excited to have you here today, brother. I'm telling you, good things are coming together, and I know you've got some great stories. You were a hit. Well, you weren't actually on the show, but we talked about you on the Defiance Daily Show about your. We call you the Owl Whisperer, but what we wanted to talk about today was, and I am aware, we kind of remember when you were going through this, and this is one of the topics that we like to talk about. And you, there was a few years back, and I'll let you give a little bit of background about how you found yourself in this situation, but you found yourself in the system with some federal prosecutors, and was FBI, who was it was quite a little bit of a debacle. It was took a few years off your life, a little stress.
Ooh, a lot of stress.
How long ago was this, Johnny? When did this happen? Give us some background.
2017, somewhere in there.
So what were you doing at the time? Give the listeners here a little bit of background. How did you come to this situation?
Let's see, mid-90s, I got involved in the telecommunications cable industry. And started out, I had a brother-in-law that really didn't work a whole lot. He played more golf than he did work, but he showed me a check one day and about 3 times what I was making. I was like, how'd you do that? He said, I'm selling cable door to door. Selling cable. I thought you went to the front counter and bought your cable service, but no. You can get out there and offer a $10 deal, free install, and make about $100 a deal. And you can sign up about 10 people a day. So you're making
back in the golden age.
Golden age back in the mid '90s. So yeah, I went out one day and seen you and I know numbers. You're going to work for a penny a day and double that penny every day. You ever done that?
Oh yeah.
So just numbers are numbers. So I knew if I get out there and hustle, what I could do. So it's pretty much unlimited, just other than how many hours you put in a day. But that's where I started, going door to door selling cable. Kind of moved my way up with a couple of companies. A lot of buddies I knew, I started turning them on to it, and I started building crews. I got good at building sales teams, and just kind of, that was just met a lot of people. At one time, actually 2009, after I'd been in the industry for about 14 years, I started my own company, and I started to have about 150, 160 sales guys in about 6 different states doing this, and then got into installation, doing installation services where we'd go into people's homes, hook up their internet, their phone, their television. Started out with about 6 technicians doing that because the sales industry kind of started falling out. These cable companies started taking their sales force in-house. Mm-hmm. So the contractors were just kind of out. So I kind of seen the trend, so I started looking around, and a buddy of mine in the industry said, hey, I'm over installs. Why don't you come do some installs? He said, you know anything about installs? I said, no. He said, well, can you learn? I said, sure. So I started out with 2011 or 12 with about 6 technicians. About 2019, a very short period, I had about 420 employees doing installations.
That's a big project.
That's a big project.
Any headaches?
That's where all this grade comes from.
Having all them employees,
yeah, man,
a little bit.
You're paying $1 million a year for your fleet insurance. It gets a little. You get sued every week. You get sued every week because your buddy your technician ran into somebody. So. Yeah, it was a lot of stress, but during this time, it was about 2017, I had a couple of old sales guys come to me and said, Johnny, can you, and at the time, I think our company was doing, I was doing $3 or $4 million a year. And they come to a couple of guys say, hey, man, there's Obama phones. Come out with these government Obama phones.
Obama phones? You talking about Barack? You talking about our friend Barry?
You know Barack? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Barack. Man, our Kenyan president.
Oh, yeah. But, yeah, we still, I said, sure. I found this company out of Memphis that was really involved in this. They were called, and again, all this is true. I don't mind telling the name. True Wireless was the name of the company out of Memphis. And so I got a contract with them, and it really wasn't something I was focused on because it was just, I was helping a couple of guys out that had worked with me for years. And like I said, I built this company with a group of very fine young men. Still stay in touch with them today. Just good guys. They started their own companies. But these 2 or 3 guys that came to me with this Obama phone deal, I just kind of turned it over to one of the guys. And you remember Andy.
Oh yeah.
And so he kind of ran it for me. And Cody, remember Cody and Scott, all those guys. So there's 3 or 4 of them. I've been 5 at total. It wasn't that much. But what they would do is go out and, if you had a food stamp, some kind of a government assistance, you got a free phone with about 250 free minutes, and the government loaded those phones up every month. Well, the company like True Wireless would give me the contract to go hand the phones out. We would get paid a very small commission. I think it was like $15 a phone. Where these other companies that actually supplied the phones to, they were getting about $120
Oh,
per
good
phone.
Lord.
Now,
free money.
Understand every month when them phones pick back around with 250 more free minutes, that company got paid another $120 for that phone.
No.
So they were getting residuals. Oh yeah, they were making millions. But a guy like me, I just had a little deal out, and I think in 6 months we might have done, I think it was $76,000 in 6 or 8 months. It wasn't a lot, but I knew something was off and I didn't really pay attention to it. But I had gotten a call from the company and said, hey, we on the portal here, it shows y'all are putting phones in at 11 o'clock at night. 11 o'clock at night, how are we putting phones in? So I called the guys up and said, hey, man, I asked Andy and Cody, how are you putting phones out at 11 o'clock at night? Oh, we were washing clothes at the laundromat, and there's people in there, and we just started signing people up. It's pretty legitimate because you're in the cable industry. You walk across anybody at the gas station or supermarket, you can sell them cable. Same thing with these phones. So this kind of rocked on, and, had a couple of more complaints come in, nothing crazy, but they started putting some parameters in place to where, tighten up the ship where, there couldn't be a lot of fraud, because there's a lot of fraud in it. I had heard some stories of some guys getting caught doing things they shouldn't do. I actually traveled because Oklahoma was Native Americans. They actually, if you did phones in Oklahoma, you got paid about 3 times the commission than you would in any other state because of the Native Americans. So that's what these guys were keying on, was Oklahoma. Well, I knew about where they were at, and I just kind of popped in. And surprised them, and hey, how y'all doing? I just kind of checked it because something was off, And they were and I've known Andy and Cody for a long time. They just seemed kind of squirrely about it. And so I'd asked a few questions, and I noticed a phone book on the bed that was open. And I don't know why it didn't click on me till later. But they just seem very odd. And when these perimeters come down where you couldn't, hey man, we're doing everything above board. We're doing it. We're not doing anything. I said, guys, you can't. This is a government thing. This is federal. It can't be doing anything kind of scandalous, crap on any fraud. No, we're not doing that. We wouldn't do that, Johnny. So I just kind of left it at that. And about 2 to 3 weeks later, when these parameters come down, these boys were done. Oh, we quit. It's too hard. Can't do it. I said, no, you're still giving phones away. What's the problem? They quit, wanted to turn all the phones in. They had another job. So I said, okay. So it wasn't that big a deal. So we turned they said they turned the phones in, and I killed the contract. And I'm still doing cable, right? I'm still building CGS. And so I guess it was about 2 years later, I got a knock on the door. And it was 2 FBI agents. And they actually called me. I was on my way home at the time and said, hey, this is Agent Lowe, and I forgot what the other agent was with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We'd like to have a conversation with you. I'm like, sure. I'm on my way home, and they were like, yeah, we're sitting outside your front yard. I was like, okay. So I'm thinking, okay. So I pull up, and they're super nice. Hey, come on in, have a seat. You want some, Southern boy, you want some, iced tea or whatever. You're just trying to be hospitable. And they start, what kind of business are you in? And because I asked them, hey, what can I do for you? And my wife was there, and she had a couple of friends there or something, and we were talking. They just seemed, well, we just talked about what you're doing. What you said, do you mind if we step out back and private? I'm like, okay. So we step outside in the backyard, and And I get kind of concerned because, you want to step outside for a while. Anything you say in front of my wife or whatever, but they want to talk in private. Okay.
So let me ask you
So they asked me
real
what I
quick right
did.
there. If it was knowing what you know now, if federal agents showed up at your house and said they were being all friendly or anything like, you talking to them, you letting them in,
Absolutely not.
so
They're not.
they
They're not. They're not coming in my front. They won't. They won't come in my front yard. No. No.
so anybody listening in on this, if they get a knock on
Mm-mm.
the door from an FBI agent or something like that, and they're just being all friendly and we're just we
Yeah,
just
buddy. Hey,
oh we're
buddy.
hey buddy
Yeah.
so in other words, they didn't come
That's.
in guns a blazing. They didn't come in
Oh
with
no.
the break.
Hey,
They
hey,
were
pal, buddy. They're my friends.
they
Friends.
were your friends, weren't they?
Yeah, they were my buddies. And like I said, if I know what I know now and I open that door, I'd say, speak to my attorney.
Yeah.
But anyway, went out back and they started asking me what I do. And I started telling about the cable. And honestly, I had forgotten all about this phone thing. It'd been, I think, 2 or 3 years. I think it was 2 years. And so I started telling about all, and they said, that all you ever done? I said, yeah, I've done sales door to door. We're doing installations. We're doing trouble calls. We're doing, drop barriers, starting to get into construction. I started opening up a second division of my company. And so we started talking about, and they just kind of said, well, what else have you done? That's what I do for a living. I'm not understanding. What are you getting at? Like, well, didn't you do something with government phones? And then it clicked them. I said, yeah. Well, I said that for about, 6, 7 months. I did a contract. And then it kind of dawned on me. The first thing I thought about, okay. First thing I thought, Cody and Andy. That's the first thing I hit.
In that open phone book.
And that open phone, I thought, I said, okay. I said, yeah, I did do some, yeah, I did, we had a contract. I said, what's this have to do with? And they said, well, we're investigating a company. And here's another thing, for your listeners. We're investigating a company. We're not investigating you, Mr. Walker. We're investigating True Wireless. We feel like they've done some wrong things. And we're looking to.
So in other words, they're not even. Oh, dude, these guys, man. I'm telling you, folks. Okay. So in other words, you literally believe, oh crap, man, they're into something, and now what can I do to help?
Exactly. I mean, that's me. I'm just, I'm an open book. So I'm like, yeah, man, what? So I don't know if I can help because I knew I met the owner one time, I think, of True Wireless, and he's a big mover shaker, big business guy, but he's making millions doing this. I said, oh, True Wireless, yeah, that's who I had the contract with, and the guy's name was Brian Cox. And they were investigating Brian. They were this, they were that. They were doing all this. They want to know, if I could help them, and I'm not in the way. I'm not this. I'm that. And I was like, well, did True Wireless train us to do this? They'll do this the wrong way. Did they train? I'm like, nope, they did. I mean, they didn't train us to do anything wrong. They trained. I said, honestly, they trained the trainer. So I said, I had a guy named Andy. They trained him, and Andy trained everybody else. I mean, they said, what about you? I said, well, I mean, I wouldn't know how to get in the portal, or if I'd gotten in the portal, it might have been one time. I'd never put one phone in myself, so I didn't know how to do it. I had them doing it for me.
Right.
Again, it was just a contract, and they were trying to fulfill it. So at that point, Mark, it turned. When I couldn't help them with their so-called True Wireless, their investigation of True Wireless, it immediately turned to me. And immediately, well, Mr. Walker, we have 2 people that work for you. That said you told them to do this. I said, whoa, wait a minute. No. I haven't told anyone to do anything wrong. I said, in fact, I investigated it to make sure it wasn't being done wrong. Oh, yeah, when was that? And I immediately said, well, hang on just a minute. Let's back up. Who's accusing me of doing something like this? Well, we can't tell you that, Mr. Walker. I said, why not? Well, because you'll find out in court one day who your accusers are.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God.
I said, hang on just a minute.
So is that the point where you went?
That's the point where I went.
Dun.
I don't know. Again, this is my first podcast, as you know. I'm not sure what kind of 4-letter words I can throw out there and be okay. But I got mad. My ears turned red. I knew right then, okay, who's accusing me? Because I said, look, I stopped and I said, agent, I have not done anything wrong. I've not told any. I said, I'm a business guy. I've been in business a long time for myself. I don't stay in business as long by being a fraud, by telling people to do something. I said, so I need to know who's accusing me because I want to meet this head on. I'll help you in any way I can. I said, but I'm not your guy. And they said, oh, yeah, you're the kingpin. what he said.
You're the kingpin. Oh,
I'm the kingpin.
Oh,
Wow.
$15
commission. $15 commission on a Obama phone that I barely kept $4 a phone on. I'm the kingpin. Okay. I said, well, first off, I'm no kingpin. I'm a cable guy. so I don't know. And he just immediately cut me off. We're going to get you. We know you, what you've done, and we wouldn't be here unless we knew you're the guy. I said, really? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you just go ahead and take me away? I said, why don't you go ahead and cuff me up then? If you really think I did, you got evidence on me, let's go. I said, or you and your girlfriend can get the fuck out of my backyard. How about that? And that's what I said to him.
So it was a guy and a chick cop, huh?
No, it was two guys.
Oh,
and,
okay. So a little homo joke.
Yeah,
nothing
they
wrong,
were.
Hey, man, nothing wrong with a little homo joke.
At that moment, those boys had sugar in their tank, as far as I care. But to come in my backyard and not approach me like a man and come to me like some snake, and that's what they were. They were snakes. And I'm not saying all FBI guys are snakes, but those two right there, especially the agent,
they're all
he ain't right. He ain't right. So at that point, they left. But let me just also tell your listeners, don't ever say that to an FBI agent. Don't ever say that.
What, the girlfriend or get the fuck out of my backyard?
None of it. Just ask them to leave, because 8 months later, I was indicted by the federal government, and I got a letter in the mail. And buddy, when you see the United States of America versus Johnny Walker, ooh, it takes a little wind out of yourself.
Little pucker factor.
Little pucker factor. But here's the one thing out of this whole story, Mark, and there's a lot to it. The one thing that got me more than anything was I was guilty before I ever had a trial, before I ever had a piece of discovery, before I ever had a conversation with an attorney, before anything. I was guilty. When I went up there. When
you went up where?
I went up to Little Rock, Arkansas, to the marshal, to the federal building. And the marshals took me right in there, and I had gotten an attorney at the time. And I fired him about as quick as I hired him.
Why is that?
Don't you worry, Mr. Walker. We'll get you a deal. I don't need a deal. What I need is someone fight for me, because I'm ready to go to war. I'm ready to fight. I'm not the guy that you don't back me in a corner. I'm coming out. That's just who I am. If I'm wrong, I'm going to admit it and try to make amends. But if I'm right and I haven't done nothing wrong, it's going to be a hard fight. You didn't mess with the wrong hillbilly, as Billy Bob Thornton would say.
Yep.
But
I talk to owls, boy. I talk to owls. You don't understand.
I get in those woods right there. I get right in there at the pitch of night and sit by a tree and just call
them hoot owls. They didn't know what they was messing with, man. They didn't know you was the owl whisperer.
I'm the hoot owl man.
Right.
But yeah, no. So I go up and, Mr. Walker, do you do drugs of any kind? Well, no, I don't do drugs. I mean, I smoke a little weed every now and then to help me sleep. I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah.
Well, we need you to pee in a cup. Okay. Pee in the cup. Sure enough, you smoke weed. Yes, I know. Well, we need you to stop doing that, because we are going to assign you, and here it comes, a pretrial probation officer.
A pretrial probation officer.
Let that sink in. A pretrial probation officer.
As someone with a little bit of background in law enforcement, how are you on probation if you haven't even been to court?
How am I going to be put on probation? I haven't been convicted of nothing. I'm being charged.
You haven't even been to, so you haven't even, I mean, this is like
this is all the same day I go to court and say not guilty, and I go to the back of the room. They're going, oh, we have you a public defender. I said, I don't need one. I hired an attorney. Oh, you hired it. Like, they were shocked that I hired an attorney, because I'm guilty, because the feds come after me and I'm automatically guilty. So I got to work the best deal for me. That's their whole, that's everything they think about. You're guilty before you ever get a trial. Before
you ever get any discovery. The United States government, you can't fight us.
You can't fight them. We got too much. We got too many resources.
So when this whole, this is a little sidebar, but when that whole J6 debacle went down, and when the federal government came in and scooped up all them people, them old ladies that were praying on the steps of the Capitol and stuff like that, you kind of felt a little bit for it. You knew what they were up against.
When I seen that, it brought back some bad memories. And
Because you knew.
there's about 2 or 3 years of their life fixing to be gone because they had to fight that crap. I knew immediately. I still see it today on certain things. It goes all over me. And but no, so they a gentleman I knew in town, Hot Springs, he had a reputation of being kind of a pit bull, and I knew him. He had done an adoption when I adopted 2 of my children years ago, and I kind of knew him. So I went to him and told him the whole story, laid it all out, and he's like, "Yeah, man." He said, "I'll take this." He said, "No." He said, "Hey," and he knew me. He knew I wasn't some shady fraud guy, you know. And he said, "I got you, Johnny." He said, we'll work through this. So 2 years, Mark, 2 years. Every month I had to go pee in a cup. Just whoop it out in front of grown men. Just let it rip. They treated me. I was treated like I was already a criminal.
Were they impressed?
Absolutely.
Oh God. Oh.
There's something wrong with us. We're so messy.
There's something wrong, man. There's something wrong.
But
I don't get the whole. I mean, as far as I know, well, I don't know what state laws are. Maybe it is illegal to smoke a little dope or whatever. But I don't see what that has really anything to do with what their interest was in you. Was that that's just an intimidation type of?
It was an intimidation thing because they immediately, once I did the not guilty and here I got to pee in a cup. Oh, you got to come here and the marshals they're gonna fingerprint you and take your DNA and you're guilty. And so from that part, I started, there were several. I still kept thinking about Andy and Cody, and I had other people that was doing it at the time. So I started calling, "Hey guys, this has just happened to me. Have y'all heard anything? Or what's going on? Because y'all hear, And the 2 guys that were involved in it lied to me the most. Because especially Andy. Andy and I were pretty close at one time. He was good, even after.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this: did they go after those guys first, and then they just said, "Oh no, we're not. You want that? Is that what happened, or how did that?"
So here's the great part of the story. Right after they threw the phones in and say, "Hey, I'm done," right? Cody had an Oklahoma phone book, and he was in a hotel in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, with a hooker. And they were opening up these phone books. They were opening up these phone books from Oklahoma and was just loading up everybody with phones. And of course, I'm getting a report once or twice a month that says, "Hey, all these." Now,
are they calling people, or are they just getting names out of them?
No, they're just pulling names. They're going down the alphabetical, and they're ordering. "Hey, Johnny, we need 3,000 more phones. Or we need 1,000 more phones." I'm just ordering phones and sending to them because it's real automated, and they're just hooking these people up. Half these people don't even know they have an Obama phone. At that, and that's when they put those parameters. Yeah, they put parameters in to where you had to take a photo of their government assistant card or something, which was great. That way it cuts.
Well, then how were they getting around that?
That's when they quit. When they started doing the ID card, that's when they decided to quit. But before then, it was the Wild West. So, we rock along there, and just what happened was this lady of the night that was with Cody, as special as she is, she got arrested for drugs and stuff. It was pretty bad when I heard it. And she gets arrested and goes, I know some federal crime that's going on I can tell you about. If you'll let me off
it. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. So they're knocking on Cody's door.
They knock on Cody's door. Well, she goes back to the hotel room still doing it, and she's wired for sound. Wired for sound. So here's the interesting part. The one evidence they had that they did not bring to court, or did not, when they would have helped prove my innocence, Cody said on tape, "Listen, a guy named Johnny calls from Arkansas, Hot Springs. Don't tell him what we're doing because he don't know what we're doing." That was on their tape.
Oh, are you kidding?
Not kidding you. True story.
Now, wait a second. That sounds exculpatory. Is that the correct legal terminology?
That's exactly what that is. It don't sound like it. That's exactly what it is. But they had that evidence that John, and I'm the only Johnny. I'm the only Johnny. No other Johnnies, can't confuse it. if Johnny got him, Johnny calls, don't tell him what we're doing. I never even knew this. I didn't know till the trial that there was a prostitute even involved. They even marched her in there to the trial, by the way.
Did they really?
Lovely looking Humpty Dumpty lady. Yeah, lovely lady.
You're using lady very loosely here, aren't you?
Yeah, very loosely.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. I'm just.
What you want to say? How?
I mean, I just.
See, Krakow. Anyway.
Krakow. Okay.
Yeah, Krakow. Anyway, so yeah, so that's how all that began, and so Cody, he got hooked up right out of the gate.
What do you mean he got hooked up?
He was also, I mean, they got him. Feds come in, got him, put him under the lights.
Oh, so they came out. They arrested him. They took him in.
I got Cody.
They said okay.
Andy was next. They got Andy in. They got another boy named Scott in, and they all three. Johnny told us to do that immediately, but they did that under the guidance of that agent, Brother Agent Lowe. They did that.
Now, what do you mean by that? What do you mean they did it?
From what I was told, that he just pretty much, look, we know you boys didn't do this on your own. We want to know, immediately they start talking. Oh, Johnny told us how to do. He told us to do Johnny. We know you boys wouldn't do nothing like this on your own. They're, more or less telling them they weren't smart enough to do that on their own. That's exactly what they did on their own. That's exactly what they did. They figured a way around the system when you didn't have to figure a way. You were giving them away.
Yeah, I mean, you're not even asking for money. You're not. I mean, you're just saying you want a free phone.
But it's easier to sit in a hotel room in a whole other state with a crack whore.
Yeah.
With a telephone book. I mean, just stupid. Anyway. So it just kind of, they admit that, and so I called Andy. I called everybody, and I called Andy the most because he just seemed the most nervous. You know how Andy was. He couldn't take a lot, and he had been, he was in college years. When he was young, he got hooked up on some drug charges and stuff. But his mom got him out. His mom worked for the state. So anyway, they immediately just started turning on me like I'm, to get themselves a deal. And so Andy and the Scott guy, they got immunity. Cody was going to get a lesser sentence. Cody was getting, because Cody was the one that was doing it. He was physically doing it. And so he. Now,
what do you mean by physically doing it? So
Scott and Andy was kind of the man. He was looking over. They wouldn't do a lot of. Scott did a few phones, but Cody was the one doing a few thousand phones. He was the one that was physically doing the fraud. He was the one.
Where are these phones? Because there's physical phones, right?
Physical phones, yeah.
Where are the phones?
They literally found thousands of phones in Cody's shed, one of Cody's sheds, thousands. So he was just hooking them up, turning them on, and getting paid for them, and just throwing them in the shed, just throwing them in trash. You've got to be kidding me. No, true story, man. And they were just, dumb as a criminal. Criminals are not that smart. And so they, again, we went through this whole. But I had the thoughts about me after a while. This was going on for the first year. I had lunch with Andy, and I taped the conversation with Andy. Oh. And he said some things on the tape that was very useful. The whole story, very useful. So when he got on the stand, he lied. And on that tape, on that audio tape, was going to prove he was a liar. And so my attorney said, "Oh, Your Honor," and helped, we won't introduce evidence. Well, the prosecutor, and this prosecutor was let us know that he hadn't lost a case right before the trial. I know I'm skipping around a little bit. Right before the trial, he let me and my attorney know he hadn't lost a case in 21 years, and he wasn't going to lose this one. And he would offer me, because my maximum was $1 million fine and 30 years in prison for one charge, the wire fraud.
Holy. So that's how they intimidate you.
That's how they intimidate you.
So in other words, a lot of people, they plea out. They'll go do a little prison time. Because they're terrified, even though they're innocent. Maybe they don't have the funds to get a good attorney, but they're up against the United States government, who has an endless checkbook.
Thank the Lord above for the blessing me to build a company way I did, where we had extra income, where I hired a pit bull, and it cost a pretty damn penny, but I was able to afford that. Somebody who would fight for me, somebody who knew me. It wasn't some appointing an attorney who don't give two shits about
So
you.
if you would have gotten an appointed attorney, that attorney obviously would have said, "We're not fighting this. Are you kidding? We can't fight this. They'll win."
Oh, yeah.
You got,
You're
what are they
going-
offering? So what were they offering you?
So instead of the maximum, they were at one time it came down to 10 years,
10.
$500,000. But the day, 2 days before the trial, you know, Mr. Walker, I hadn't lost a case in 21 years. Not gonna lose this one. This is the one-time offer. One time, $300,000 in fines and 18 months in a minimum security. We'll even let you have your laptop so you can run your cable business. What you tell me? They made it sound good. I said, you know what? At that point, I was so bowed up. After 2 years of this, I didn't give two shits if I went away for 10 years. I was going to fight this because I was not guilty. I said, you know what, Pat? Let me tell you something, buddy. I appreciate that. That's a good offer for a guilty man. That's a good offer for someone who's guilty. I said, but I'm not guilty. I said, so saddle up. And my attorney looked at him and said, we'll see y'all tomorrow or a couple of days. So that trial started on Monday. And I walked in.
Horrible. This is just the night. I can't imagine living with that sort of damage hanging over your head where you're like, hey, man, this.
You know, my baby girls, I've got 5 children, 13 grandchildren. And at the time, my two youngest girls were still home. They were just, you know, grade school, junior high, that type of stuff. And I'm thinking, you know, my wife was, you know, she's just great gal, but she was, you know, this twisted her, this, you know, you can't blame her. Let me tell you something. Most women would have ran. She stood by my side. She's, you know, Kim, she's a fighter. Yeah. She don't play. She'll bow up on you.
Right.
5 foot nothing, 100 nothing. But there's only 2 things I'm afraid of in this world, and that's Jesus and Kim. So, but right. She'll fight. So she bowed up with me and said, "Get after him. I know you didn't do this. I get after him." So,
now, and again, I want to reiterate, they're coming after you, even though there is damning exculpatory evidence where their main witness is on tape saying Johnny doesn't know anything about this.
The guy named Johnny calls, don't say nothing. He don't know what we're doing. That was on the Fed 301 form. I'm sure you've heard of that.
No, what is
that? These feds have forms that they have to present, you know, evidence, and they put their evidence or discovery on. And so there were 301 forms that had this evidence on it that he didn't bring to court.
What do you mean he didn't bring to court?
So he didn't bring everything, you know. When my attorney asked, because we had heard it, we knew he had this evidence. Oh, he had forgotten it across, and my attorney folded his arms and said, "Well, we'll just wait for you to get back." And he just sat there, didn't say a word. I mean, he made this FBI guy look, and oh my goodness, they look so. He made them look horrible. If you ever need,
so I don't mean to cut you off. Many questions.
Yeah.
What was the judge? See, we have such a screwed up justice system. It is beyond. Unless you've gone through what you went through, people don't have any idea, do they? See, people think, well, I have nothing to worry about because I've never done anything wrong. People don't realize how quickly they can end up where you were. I mean,
100%.
For anything. I mean, literally be made up. And
Mark, we're talking about a phone, a free phone. We're talking about $76,000 total that I think I might have made $25,000 off of, maybe $20,000, because I gave most of it to the guys. I mean, their commission.
This was just
This was a side gig just to help the guys out that had worked.
It was like, well, hell, man, if they're giving, I've got the people in place. We've got the infrastructure to do this. Yeah, hell yeah, why wouldn't we do it? Okay,
you know me, I make $1. I'm gonna go
down the road thinking, I'm making a little extra Dairy Queen money or something. I don't. Yeah. I mean, basically, what it had ended up was for you.
Two piles of money is always better than one.
Any employee, any employer, any citizen in the United States just going about. Somebody could maybe be doing something wrong or something that's affiliated with, and said, Bob, he put me up to it. And I mean, this is literally, What happened?
That's exactly what happened. It can happen to anybody, any business owner. Let me tell you something. I
It
learned so
happens
much.
all the time.
If I had it to do over again, I would have been way more involved. I'd have been way more looking at, the right and wrong way to do it, and who, because I would have put more QC in place. Right. But it was just something that was just a spoof, make a little money, hey, whatever. And we only did it for like 6 months because this
wasn't anything that really took up a lot of your time. This wasn't something you were focused on. This wasn't something that, you had other things going on where you were making your actual.
Yeah, because my cable company, contracted company at the time, we were doing $3.5-4 million a year, and this was $76,000. But they tried to paint the picture in court that this was my baby, this was my money, this was my churner, this is my money maker. No, it wasn't. It was $76,000. You think I'm gonna worry about $76,000 when I got $4 million over here? I can go get it. Come on. So they really tried to paint the picture. It was all week. I was on the stand for 6 hours. 6 hours. Just getting hammered.
Back to my question. Who was the judge? Did the judge smell like, okay, wait a second. Yeah,
so the judge was, I can't think of his name, very friendly, because I was on the stand for 6 hours, 4 hours one day and 2 hours the next. So when they give breaks, I was just sitting there kicking it with the judge, talking to him, and he was telling me stuff he would go see his prisoners and people that he sentenced. He does work with them inside, and I thought, hey, that's good. But my attorney, and again, you ever in Hot Springs, Clay Jansky is a pit bull if you ever need a pit bull. But Clay was like
Clay Jansky?
Jansky, yeah, that boy. You ever see Goliath? Billy
Yeah,
Bob?
I was going to say, he's the Goliath guy, right?
He is Goliath. He is my Goliath. I can tell you right there. Yeah.
You're referring to the Netflix or Prime, Amazon TV
Netflix
series, right?
Yeah.
Netflix,
so if you ever had that's Clay right there. He'll just dig in, and he doesn't give a rip. He just doesn't.
Smart guy.
Yeah, man. He during the trial, and I didn't know this. Attorneys during it, when someone has mentioned a certain name, it's okay to refer to that person as that name. If someone's called an asshole, what are you talking about, asshole? You can call them asshole the rest of the trial. I don't know if you knew that.
Really?
So while Andy was on the stand, he made the comment how that Agent Lowe was a big bad tough cat. He was a big bad. It scared him. Come to him and scared him. He was so from that point forward, Clay referred to that agent as big bad scary cat.
I imagine Agent Big Scary Cat or Big Bad Scary Cat. I imagine he appreciated that, didn't he?
No, I don't think Clay's well liked anymore in that Eastern Division, but that's okay. But anyway, going back to, like I said, the
judge had
we were kicking it. He seems super nice, but Clay told me that he was telling all of his staff, I was guilty. I was the kingpin. I was guilty.
So the judge
Judge thought I was the man. And Clay said his whole staff said, that man's not guilty. Come on, Judge. Yeah, just look at, just listen. Listen to listen, I had some very fine young men who come in that worked for me, who stood up for me, my character. Some business guys that come in dressed to the T, and they were well-spoken. And that's, even Clay said, that's who Johnny does business with. That's who he, So I had my ducks in a row because I was going to fight this to the end. And I had that audio tape, and the prosecutor threw a fit when Andy was on the stand. And Clay caught him in every lie, asked him every question, kept him on the stand for damn near an hour, and he lied about everything. And I had the tape in my hand, or they had the tape in their hand. And when our attorney said we want to introduce new evidence, that prosecutor freaked out.
Really?
Wouldn't allow it. The judge would not allow it. But what? Based on we should have submitted that in discovery. But no, we have evidence that proves our client's innocence because your client just lied. And I had two attorneys. Clay had another gentleman with him. I was just brilliant. Guy's brilliant. This guy took his law exam. I forget what you call them.
Bar. The bar.
Not like, yeah, the bar. Took the bar.
Yeah.
Finished it in 19 minutes and made a 99%. That's that smart, this guy.
Damn.
Called him Chief, as they call him Chief. So Chief raised up this audio cassette, or it was actually CD at the time, and walks it right in front of the jury, holding it up. Evidence that our client's innocent, because he wouldn't let the jury listen to it. He excused the jury, where he only the judge and Andy and just people in the courtroom, but the jury could not hear it because he would not let it. But when the judge listened to that whole, it was 45 minutes. He looked at Andy and said, "I'm gonna give you one chance to tell the truth, or I'm gonna charge you with perjury. Basically, you got one chance." So he had the jury come back in, and Clay went through that entire questions again with him, and Andy had to tell the truth, and it tore his credibility in half. That's
and that was and was that the Fed's key witness?
One of their 3 key witnesses.
Okay.
When Cody got up there, same thing. Scott got up there. Clay just obliterated it, just tore them in pieces. Their credibility was nothing. I could tell by the jurors. They just, it was just kind of.
What do we do? They're probably sitting there going, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah, what are we doing here? So when the agent got up there, and then there was a FBI forensic accounting that was going to show all the accounting numbers and how I manipulated and he just tore her a new one too. She got so mad. She got so frustrated at Clay. I mean, I don't even know why they brought her in here. 2 + 2 doesn't equal 6. I mean, come on. And that's what they were trying to show. And then the federal agent got up there and he just tore him a new. I was embarrassed for the guy. He had gone to 2 of my witnesses. I had 2 guys that had done this. He stood up for me. And actually the prosecutor had called both of my witnesses and told them, "You don't have to show up to the trial. Well, it's just a routine." Tried to get my witnesses not to show up, the prosecutor. The FBI agent went to their work to intimidate my 2 witnesses. Because my 2 witnesses.
Now, okay, hang on. Is that legal?
I don't think so. But they can do what they want.
I
don't think it's illegal at all. But they went, especially the young man named Nick. He told them, "Johnny never told me to do anything wrong. It was Andy and Cody that taught me," because he got caught. Well, I think he had done like 30 phones the wrong way. And he quit. He didn't want no part of it. But he told them, "Andy and Cody taught me how to do it. Johnny didn't teach me how to do nothing wrong." The other guy said the same thing. But they didn't want to hear that. That was on record. That was on record. And they didn't bring that to court. That 301 file they didn't bring to court. So this agent went to Nick's work, and Nick said he knocked shit off his desk and stomped his foot and tried to threaten him to don't show up. I mean, they tried to threaten him not to show up to the trial 2 days before the trial.
I think isn't that witness intimidation or witness tampering?
That's exactly what it. I mean, that's what I think.
I'm not a lawyer. Okay,
I'm not either. But you're not going to tell me that's legal.
I've read some John Grisham books.
Yeah, that's not legal. Not in anybody's where I don't
so
think
did
that's
that come to
fair. No. Of course they didn't bring that up.
Did that come to light in court at all? Did
so Nick? Yeah, Nick got on because they didn't think he was going to show up. They thought they intimidated. Nick showed up, and he told them. He said, "That guy right there," and Clay, of course, said, "Oh, you mean that tough, scary cat?"
Tough, scary cat.
Yeah, he's like, yeah. He said he'd come to my work, and he did. He told them what he had done. Nothing was ever mentioned. Nothing ever was said about it.
What did the judge say? I mean, what?
Not a damn word. Not a damn word.
It's our federal government. This is our justice system. They needed a lot.
They needed somebody
because they've got to show
I had the money to pay all their little fines, and they wanted me to spend some time in jail. And I just said, "I'm not doing either, brother. Come on, you want to fight? Let's go. If you're going to put me in jail for a long time. I'm not going to admit to something I did not do. I'm not going to admit to a crime I did not commit." So I fought them all week long, and brother, it was so much off my life.
So the trial was basically a week total.
It was a whole. They didn't. It was a whole week, and up until noon on Friday, when we rest the case. Now I'm going to tell you, man, Clay just did a brilliant job at closing. Because the prosecutor closes, then we get to close, but then they get to close again.
Okay,
you understand that?
Yeah.
Rebuttal. So, but when Clay was just so brilliant, I just can't. I don't know, man. I can't thank that guy enough of what he did and just the professionalism and just the toughness he showed. Because that's an intimidating courtroom.
Did you ever see the prosecutor ever have an oh shit moment or something, or a moment where he seemed like he was taken off balance a little bit, or he was like, oh,
toward the end.
In what way? How?
Well, I mean, toward the end, honestly, Mark, they were so arrogant. They were so arrogant. I don't think it dawned on them until the verdict come down. I'll just be honest with you. They were so arrogant.
Really?
They were just heads up, chest all poked out. They got him. We got him. They had that arrogant about them. So much to the fact that when Clay came outside when the jury was deliberating, and he said, Johnny, if they put you in cuffs, man, I'm going to get a deal where you just know it's going to be minimum security. I mean, he was already planning. I said, Clay, you did a brilliant job. You fought as hard as you could. If it goes down this way, it goes down this way. I was, he just said, look, he said, I'll just make sure you're in a spot where, it's very, you can play tennis. He's going to put me in some down
club fed.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm sitting there crying like a little girl thinking, oh my God, fix go to jail. Shit. And so he said, if it goes for a long time, if the jury's in there for a long time, we got a really good shot. But if they come back quick, and they had been in there for like 45 minutes or 30 minutes, and the jury, 30 minutes later, they come back with two questions. Why was the FBI guy not forced to go down and get that evidence? And why could they not? Could they listen to the tape? And could they see that evidence? The judge, again, the jury asked, can we see that thrill? Can we see that evidence? And can we listen to the tape? We need those two to make a decision. And you know what the judge told them?
Oh.
That's what the jury said. The jury asked this.
Again, while they're deliberating, they're asking,
yes.
Hey, we want to.
30 minutes into deliberation, they asked, can we listen to the tape? We need to listen to the tape, and we want to see that evidence that the FBI guy did not bring into court. And you know what the judge told them? No. You have everything you need to make a decision. Make your decision. Turned them down, wouldn't let them.
Son of a.
Yeah. So Clay come out and told me that, and I was like, fuck, really? They're not even going to give me a fighting chance.
Well, that probably pissed the jury off. I'm thinking if I was a juror and I was deliberating and I said, hey, we just want to see the facts of the case so that we can make the right, a man's life is hanging in the balance here. We want to do the right thing. If he's guilty, then we'll find him guilty. But if he's innocent, we want to find him in. And the judge said, you got to, I'll bet maybe that jury pool probably was just kind of like, well, what are you hiding? There had to be a.
I only wanted one juror to believe me.
Yeah.
I was shooting for all I need is one guy or gal to believe in what really happened, And so,
right.
And like I said, Clay's closing was just brilliant. Just can't say enough about him. And so, it was 10 minutes later. No, 15. It wasn't quite an hour. It was less, like 45 minutes. They called us back in. And then Clay turned around his eyes. And said, oh shit. So when he told me that, I'm thinking, holy shit, because he said if they come back quick, it's not good.
Damn.
He said that. So when they come,
so your butthole just goes.
I'm like this. I'm a wreck. I'm like, okay. So I start, I'm like Richard Pryor and Stair Crazy. All right, you gotta get bad now, man.
Yeah.
You gotta, you go in there, you gotta get bad. You got to step in it. So I had to start manning up. I thought, here I go. I gotta change. I gotta turn into a tough.
You're about to be in an orange jumpsuit.
About to be in an orange, whatever color. I'm thinking, wow, I gotta get bad, But when I walk in there and when you hear that verdict, have you received your decision? Yes, Your Honor, we have. We find the defendant, Johnny Walker. And I'm like, Mr. Walker, right, rise. I'm like, holy crap. And of course, you got a couple of federal marshals kind of easing their way around the table.
Damn, dude, the sharks are circling, man.
I'm like,
they're smelling blood in the water.
When I seen that outside of my eyes, I thought, okay, I'm gonna get cuffed up. Here it comes. So I'm gonna chill, just man up, give my wife a hug and kiss, send me some commissary. I'm gonna start fighting tomorrow. And so no, but when they said we find a defendant, Johnny Walker, not guilty. I mean, now that's when you seen the prosecutor go. He couldn't believe, and that's when and then Clay said, and then the FBI guy. I walked out. When I walked out, I lost it. Kim and I were sitting, and the jurors were coming by us. They came by us. A couple of them come up and patted me on the back.
No.
and said, we know. Let me tell you something. I'll never, if I ever get tangled up in something, it's always going to be a jury. I'm never going to listen to a judge. Give me a jury of my peers to tell my story. Because they seen through the shit is what they did. They seen through that FBI guy. They just seen through it all, man. And so, God really blessed me. I still thank him today, because that could have tore my family apart. That would have tore my company apart. It would have been, everything that I built and just it tore it apart. And all for what? So that someone can build a career off of somebody else's conviction of something they didn't do. They don't care. They don't care more.
Well,
they don't care.
The whole system is a disastrous system, because the way these prosecutors, the way it works, and a lot of people just don't know. And the reason why people don't know is because the average citizen thinks, I don't ever do anything wrong. Why would I ever be arrested? This is what people don't understand.
They don't understand.
How many? Listen, so we interviewed Stuart Rhodes some months ago for our podcast, the Defiance Daily Show, and he was wrongfully accused, and he was a J6er. And if you don't know who Stuart Rhodes is, he was the founder and president of the Oath Keepers, and he wasn't even. Dude, this story is unbelievable. Unfortunately for him and all these J6ers, these folks were tried in a Washington D.C. Washington D.C. court. So 99% of Washington D.C. are, they're communists, liberals, they're Democrats. They hate anything to do with Donald Trump. It doesn't. You could have shown their defense attorneys could have presented any information, any evidence, anything, and those guys would be found guilty. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. They got railroaded. They got totally railroaded.
They hate anything that has common sense written on it.
Well, they're just evil. Democrats are just evil. Yeah. And they're just spiteful. They're wicked. And they just, if you're a Republican, then you're a bad person and you need to be locked up. It doesn't matter if you're guilty of a crime. It has nothing to do with it. Here's a chance for them to lock you up. And so Stuart finds himself in prison. I think he was in solitary confinement for 11 months. But at the end of the day, and we had a good time with Stuart, spent a couple of days with him and got to hear a lot of his story. And he said the same thing. He met so many people in federal prison that were innocent. Now, I know everybody, and I was a cop, everybody in jail. Now, federal prison is different than state prison. We're not talking about people that are knocking over liquor stores and things like this. We're talking about people like yourself.
Yeah.
And the feds show up and they're like, hey, man, you can plea out to 18 months and a couple $100,000 fine. Or if you're found guilty, you're going away for the rest of your life and you're going to pay $1 million. We have an author at Defiance Press. And he was a police officer, and it was during the BLM riots, and they literally came to him and said, hey, the video evidence, everything shows you're innocent, we get it, but we need a white cop to go down because we've got to stop the riots. This was in Louisville, Kentucky during the BLM riots. And they said, we'll guarantee that we will lock you up for 50 years. Or you do 24, you admit guilt, and we'll give you 24, and you'll probably be out in 18. And he took it, because he was like, I can't do 50 years, man. And they'll kill me because I'm a cop.
Yeah.
And so Stuart was telling us, he told story after story after story of guys that he met in prison that literally were innocent, and they were. It's just your story. I mean, different circumstances, but exactly your story. He said the federal penitentiary is full of people like that, that just look, you're going to get 30 years, or if you plead guilty, you'll be out in 18 months, just like they did to you. It's like a machine.
Yeah. They were shocked I didn't take it.
Yeah. Because everybody does.
They were shocked.
Everybody takes the deal. That's
and that
why
was a great offer for a guilty person.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, for a guilty person. Oh, you would have jumped on it.
Yeah.
But this is the problem with our justice system. Because prosecutors are rewarded for locking people up. It doesn't matter if they're guilty. This is what people do not understand about our justice system. I was a cop. I arrested people. I locked people up for doing bad things. Our justice system is so broken, and people do not understand. Now, we got Kash Patel at the FBI and Dan Bongino, and I'm hoping. Well, I was hoping they were just going to shut down the FBI, because that's what they need to do. The FBI is done. It needs to be shut down. It is the most corrupt criminal organization on the planet. I am convinced. And I know the way you were treated.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw firsthand.
I did. I had to go in, and another little story on my pre-trial probation officer. Super nice.
Yeah, this whole pre-trial probation officer. I don't understand.
Mr. Humphrey, super nice guy. But after the first year, going up and peeing in a cup every freaking, and you had to call this number, and you were a color code, and that was, boy, don't forget to call that. It was just something, it was horrible. But after about a year, he'd come by my house twice, and he's like, "Now, what exactly have you done?" He said, "You don't look like the people I normally go
right.
see." I was like, "No." And I told him what I was accused of, and he just kind of shook his head and went, "Wow." He said, and it was about a year. And he said, "You know what?" He said, "John, don't come back to my office. Just call in once a month. Let me know you're okay. Don't come back up here." He said, "I've got big time drug dealers, murderers, child rapists. I've got those people."
Right. Exactly.
He said, "I don't need. You're wasting my time. You're not a guy." But he even told Clay later on. He had seen Clay, and he said, "Hey, whatever happened to that Walker guy?" He's like, "No, man. They found him not guilty. We just presented the truth and the facts." And he told him, he said, "Yeah." He said, "I knew that guy wouldn't. He wasn't the one." He said, somebody barked up the wrong tree, and it was that agent. It was that FBI guy. I really pissed him off that bad. That's what I'm saying. Don't ever tell an FBI guy. Don't ever tell an FBI guy for him and his girlfriend, get the fuck out of your backyard. Don't ever say that, because that fired him up.
Yeah, You didn't make any friends that day, did you?
I didn't.
You forgot Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, didn't you?
Yeah, I forgot that book that day.
But what people need to understand, and this is another tactic that they use, they come across very friendly. They're your buddy, and you let them in the house, because most people that are innocent assume that this system protects innocent people.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't do that. It's not designed to do that. And so when FBI agents show up, if you're just Joe, you're just listening to this. If you get a knock on the door and some people present themselves as FBI agents and they say, "Hey man, we got some questions about your neighbor," or "We have some questions about your boss," or something like that, what do you tell them?
You might need to go talk to the neighbor about it.
Okay. You don't let them in your house.
Let me tell you something. I would not entertain anything like that. I'd get them out of my front yard in a nice way.
Yeah.
And let them know.
But you're not going to answer any of their questions. You're going to say, "Hey, give me your card, and I'll have my attorney call y'all tomorrow."
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't answer questions. Do you have a card? That's exactly what I should have done instead of piss them off. Right. They even offered a lie detector test, and I said, "Hook me up. Let's go." I called him twice. I called him back twice or three times. Hook me up, put me out, and he never would.
Really? Mm-hmm. And lie detector results aren't usable.
Yeah, no, they're not. And Clay even
they're
told
actually
me,
trying to figure out what's going on here. They can look at that and say, "Well, where does this line up with? And is this just additional?"
Right.
Okay.
Well, Clay even told me it was the best idea. He said, "You're a high-strung guy at times."
Yeah. So it's very nerve-wracking. I've taken a lie detector.
Yeah, I'm an emotional guy. I'm very passionate. So he said I would not have done good. Tell the truth, but one little thing that upset you.
Oh,
it
your
would've shown.
breathing gets,
So,
your blood pressure spikes, your sphincter
Yeah.
tightens
Right.
up, anything like that, it
Oh, yeah.
starts ringing bells. And so that's the other
Yeah.
thing. That's why that evidence is not allowed in court, because people fail
Yeah.
lie detector tests all the time.
So,
That are
but I didn't, but I was willing to do it, but they never called me back. And so he had his mind made up. They had me guilty from day one. They do not care who's innocent. They care about how many notches they get on that belt.
Yeah. But the other thing is too, is that if they were at all interested in finding the truth, why wouldn't they let that tape that you made? Why did they not enter into evidence the recording with Cody, where he said, "Hey, Johnny doesn't know anything about this"? Why?
Yeah.
They're not people that live in this country, and I'm talking about people that are innocent, just everyday Joe Blows, going to work, running their business, whatever, that aren't involved in any criminal activity. If the FBI shows up, they're letting them in their house. What do I have to hide? What do I have to hide? That's their thing. I've done nothing wrong. And what they don't understand, and what I try to preach to people, it has nothing to do with whether you're guilty or not. Sure. It has nothing to do with that. They don't care if you're innocent. They're going to prove, if they've got to lie, if they've got to cheat, if they've got to hold evidence, they will do everything they have, because the more convictions they have, they get another plaque on the wall. They get more accolades. They get rewarded. That's all they care about. And that's all you mean to them, which is terrifying when you think about it. They are willing to lock innocent people up just so they get an award, get a recognition. Or some of these local prosecutors, they want to run for a higher office or something like that. And they go, "Man, I was the toughest prosecutor in Texas. By God, I had, however many arrests, and I had so many
convictions, all these convictions.
Man, all these convictions." And again, most people go, "Man, he's good. He's blocking." Well, now wait a second. Now, do they lock up some bad guys?
Sure.
Absolutely. They lock up a bunch of innocent people too, man. And that's the way the system works. And the opposite of that is true. You got O.J. Simpson that walks free. You got Officer Derek Chauvin, who is rotting in prison right now for murder. You know what the problem is? There's no murder victim. No one was murdered.
But he's been charged and convicted.
But he's been charged and convicted for murder, but there's no murder victim. There is no murder victim, and the man is rotting in prison. This case is real big here out of Frisco, Texas, with this Carmelo Anthony that murdered that poor kid, Austin Metcalf, there at the track meet in Frisco, Texas. And I've been telling people, social media it is full of idiots. And, people were celebrating, man, he got indicted. They're going for murder, capital murder. And and I'm sitting back going, you think that guy is going to be convicted of they asked for a jury trial for a reason. And the simple reason is they just need one juror, one BLMer.
Just one.
They just need one Democrat in that jury box. And guess what? It's on jury.
Yeah.
He's walking. I'm making a prediction. Now, I hope I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to say, man, I was totally wrong. The defense attorney for Carmelo, they're going to pay him a lot of money and all this. And I know there's all this GoFundMe stuff. It's just, the whole thing is just so disgusting and vile. That is an animal that needs to be put down, is what that kid is. He is an animal that needs to be put down. And he's out on bail, which, how did that happen? He's going to walk. He's going to walk, just like OJ walked. There are 6 black jurors that since the OJ trial have come out since that trial and have admitted publicly. They did a Netflix documentary on the whole OJ thing. 6 jurors on that in that jury box admitted they knew he was guilty. They knew he was guilty. But man,
jeez,
we got to let him free because of Whitey. And they did. They
I remember
did.
watching that trial it was back in the 90s when I remember watching that
Oh
trial.
yeah, man.
Everybody watched
man. And then we hear people like you, and we hear people like Stuart Rhodes and all these J6ers, and just look what they did to Trump. Look what they did to President Trump.
They went after him, man.
Listen, let me tell you something. If he would have ended up in that, in that courthouse with that judge and whatever jury they put, I promise you, they would have locked him up.
They would have been. He'd been done.
They would have locked him up. This is a problem. This is a huge problem in the United States of America, and unfortunately, most people that live here are not that bright. They're really not. They're just not very bright. They're not engaged. They spend too much time watching CNN and Fox and playing games and doing stupid stuff and just being idiots. They're not very bright, and they don't understand because this hasn't happened to them, and they don't understand. There could be any chain of events completely outside of your control that one day you get a knock at the door, and it's 2 very nice mannered, well-dressed. We're just here from the FBI. Listen, man, we got some questions.
Need your help.
Need your help. That was it. We need your help. Well,
and see why
innocent person isn't going to say, "Oh, you need my help. What can I do to help, officer? Yeah. What can I do? What can I do to help, agent?"
Another thing too, they kind of use. So on my wife's side, I have 2 first cousins that are FBI agents, and one of them was in the office with this other guy. So why wouldn't I let them in? And these 2 young men are very fine, upstanding, hardworking, honest, love them, do anything for them. But I didn't even talk to them for 2 years because I didn't want to jeopardize them. They couldn't talk to me because that one of them was actually in the same office with this guy that was coming after me. He couldn't say they locked him out because they knew of our relationship. So, but in fact, the day after, or the day of, when I got home that night, they were the first phone call that called me.
Really?
They were shocked. I can't believe you beat that. I can't believe it. God's on your side.
They don't lose. They don't lose.
Everybody don't lose. Everybody was shocked. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit of my story because it was a piece of my life that just took such a toll on me, and I just I'm stronger than I look, so I bounce back pretty good. But yeah, I mean that's something I'll never forget. To be done that way and not because I'm a law-abiding guy. If I do something wrong, I'm going to fix it or make up for it.
It didn't cross your mind when the FBI showed up at your house. It didn't cross you never had like, oh shit, what did I do? That never even crossed your mind.
No, I'd forgotten all about they had to remind me about the contract I had with True Wireless that did the phone. I was like, oh yeah, I did that for about 6 months. I'd forgotten all. It'd been like 2 or 3 years before they knocked on my door. This story had developed. And now one thing I did hear was the prosecutor and the FBI guy that left the courtroom that day and got in. Clay had, it's one of the staff had told Clay that the prosecutor was so pissed. And he told that FBI guy, because apparently he spent a lot of man hours and a lot of money coming after me. And he told him, he said, don't you ever bring that kind of shit to me again.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know if the guy got read because the case, I mean, you could look at it and you could tell I didn't do this. They had evidence. They had evidence, and they didn't bring to court. Come on, man.
Okay, so everybody wants to know at this point. I know what happened to Andy. What happened to Cody? What happened to Scott? What happened to what happened there? How long did they serve in prison?
Karma. You ever heard Karma's a bitch?
I've heard that.
Karma.
Yeah, I've heard that.
She's a mean bitch. So Andy, like I said, he and I, even after, of course, he was my second call that day. After he apologized to me. Of course, I wasn't in the mood for that. But about a year later, he he was a big gambler, big poker player. Buddy called him one night to go to Tunica to play poker. So he got on the interstate late at night going to Tunica and played poker for all night, a couple of days. A drunk got on the interstate coming opposite direction. The guy was highly drunk, hit Andy head on at doing 70.
Damn.
The wheel, one of his front wheels came out and went through that guy's window and instantly took him out. Andy's leg was broken 4 different places. Spleen. I mean, he was so basically they drug him out. I think he might have died once or twice. He survived, but he was in a wheelchair for a very long time. And you know, I'm a forgiving guy, and I felt sorry for the guy. I actually went and had lunch with him one day when he was in the wheelchair, and he kept apologizing. They forced me to do it. You know, they told me, you know, they were going to put me away, and you know, I said, well, you know, you just didn't, you know, just bygones be bygones. Andy, out of that wreck, got paid like $1 million from that insurance company. He ended up getting divorced, got on drugs real bad, hit the bottom of the barrel, and cops were about to pick him up for something. I think him and somebody spent some of that money flipping drugs or something. I don't know what they were doing.
Do what?
Anyway, Andy, cops were on him from what I understand, and he drove to a Kroger parking lot and
started a pistol.
Yep, he did that. Cody is, last I heard, was had both of his legs cut off. You know, he had diabetes very bad. He's blind. Cancer, fighting cancer, pancreatic cancer, just not good. He's still fighting. He's still, last I heard, you know, a couple of buddies that still stay in touch with him. Scott, I don't know what happened to him. Never caught up with him.
But none of them went to prison. None of them went to trial.
Cody did.
Oh, so Cody did.
Would you like to know how much he served?
I'm going to say not a day.
He served a day in the marshal's office.
For what? For the phones or
his
for
crime.
what?
Yeah, for his crime in the phones. The rest of his probation.
The guy that was actually doing the man that was actually
doing
committing the crime.
Yeah.
Now you were going to go to prison for 30 years and pay $1 million.
Or 18 months and $300,000.
Yeah, well, if you pled out, but if you would have been found guilty that day.
They'd hooked me up probably 15 years, probably half of that. The judge thought I was guilty. Before the trial was over, the judge thought I was guilty. So if there was a guilty verdict, I was going to get hooked up. But the guy who did the crime, who set up and lied on me, got 1 day in the marshal's office and probation and had to pay back. He had a monthly installment plan to the government that I'm sure never got paid. So, yeah. And the actual trial, Andy and Scott, they got immunity. But the guy who did the actual crime, who actually did it, and hey, don't tell Johnny, he don't know what we're doing. He got 1 day in the marshal's office, sitting in a chair at the marshal's office. That was his prison sentence.
Didn't spend 2 years spending God only knows on what attorney fees, and spent 2 years sweating out if I'm going to go. I mean, not just spent a day in the marshal's office. Time out. You got a day of time out.
Actually got a call the night before the trial from a friend who knew Cody very well. Cody had called him and said, man, tell Johnny just to take that plea. They're going to send him away for a long time. It's not right. Just tell him to take the plea. He'll be out. Cody sent that message to me. Said, fuck you. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents, brother.
You know, Johnny, that's actually terrifying. And again, my message to people is, and I know that people just don't listen. They don't think innocent people don't live in fear of being falsely accused of crimes, especially federal crime. They go, what, how could that ever possibly happen to me? And I'm sure you probably, if you would have heard somebody else tell this story, not in the cable business, just something else somewhere. And I'm sure you've heard, where people have been falsely accused. You never thought it would have happened to you, did you? That was never. That was never on your bingo card.
Never would have thought it. Never would have thought it. Even up to the end of that little phone thing where they quit doing it, I even questioned Andy. I remember questioning. I said, "Man, do you think Cody's doing something wrong? Do you think?" And he knew he was doing it with him. No, man, I don't, he ain't doing that. No, he just found a new job. I said, well, he's quitting. Pretty good money he's making. He's quitting. He's just giving phones away. He's like, oh no, he just found a new job closer to home, and he ain't doing nothing wrong. And then 3 years later, I'm indicted. So, yeah,
absolutely incredible. And I wish your story was unique, but it is not.
it is not.
It is way more common than what people understand. And when your country no longer has a functioning criminal justice system, you no longer have a country. That's why I'm so passionate about this. What people don't understand is, well, Mark, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is, and we'll see this happen with Carmelo Anthony. He'll just be another one in a long succession of just miscarried justice. And when he walks, I hope people maybe at that point stop and say, wait a second, we can't keep doing this. Look at, Kyle Rittenhouse, my buddy Kyle Rittenhouse. Look what he went through. And they were going to string him up. Now, he is very fortunate because where he went to trial, he had a jury of his actual peers. And,
Yes.
And he was in an area that was, fairly, it wasn't an inner city bunch of Democrats and all that. He actually had a jury trial of his actual peers. They listened to the evidence. We all saw what was going on. He was obviously innocent, and he was found not guilty. But man, he was a mess. And by the way, he's never recovered from that. People think that Kyle won all these lawsuits and all that. Listen, Kyle didn't. No, Kyle is not rich, and I think he's got a good job with the Guns of America, and he's doing some things there, and he's putting his life back together. But
I can imagine
he'll never be the same.
I can certainly imagine, because mine's not near as deep as his was, but he clearly had defended himself. He clearly had the right to defend himself.
Oh my! And no doubt about it. I mean, thank God for all that video evidence.
Yeah. And whenever he broke down when the verdict came through, man, did that bring it? I brought back a memory. Oh, because when Clay, I'm telling you, when I heard that,
you know what he felt like.
I cried. I cried like a little kid. It was such the release. You don't understand that kind of release until you live through that. And when I seen him on camera do that, I thought, wow, I know what that feels like. And his was way deeper than what I was up for. He was, they were going to hook him. They could have hooked him up, but I knew how.
So what happens? That's my next question. So what happens after? So, not guilty. You're hugging your attorney, dude. Love you. And he was very well compensated. So, and I'm sure that, but I'm also sure that he was very happy with the verdict because he knew that you weren't guilty and all that. So the good guy won this time. And it does happen. You won, but you also lost a lot.
Yeah, there was.
You ended up being found not guilty, but dude, you lost years of your life. The whole thing was just tragic.
It took me a year or so, even afterwards. It took me a year or so just to kind of settle my nerves over the whole. Because
I needed some gummies. You needed some gummies.
No, I didn't have gummies. I needed just some peace. I needed some calmness. I needed just to get away. We took a couple of vacations it took me about a year to settle my nerves to where who's going to knock on my door next type thing. And that was because
there's always this fear. Now that it's happened to you,
yeah.
Anytime somebody knocks on your door, calls your phone, you're like, oh God, is this?
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to do this again?
Because I can tell you anything that comes up, and I think
that you're on their list, right? I mean, that if that prosecutor,
well, I mean, anything comes up, I'm going to step up and go, oh, this isn't right. Somebody, I need to let you know about it. I'm not going to be that guy who just, not really say sweep it under the rug or just ignore it. I should have been. I should have been on top of my QCs. I should have been watching closer. If I had to do it over again, I would have caught it. I'd have been more involved. But I had hindsight's 20/20. But I thought,
and it was just a side gig of a side gig of a side. It was an ancillary at best.
These boys had worked for me for years prior to that, and we'd worked together and traveled together, and played poker together, and just we just I thought I could. You can't trust everybody, brother. Trust me.
No, you can't. So
I've learned a hard lesson.
Yeah, no kidding. So what did you do after you left the courthouse? I mean, I'm trying to think how you unpack this. Did you guys go celebrate? Did you just say, man, I just need to go catch what did you guys do? How
Honestly,
did that look like?
My wife and our two lawyer buddies went and had a drink, celebratory drink. And then it was such I don't know, after we had a couple of drinks, I remember getting to the vehicle and thinking, this is over. I can breathe. I can, probably the best night's sleep I'd had in a couple of years, and I had, Lord, I had gained so much weight. I ate like a pea. I think I was 310.
You were stress eating.
I was stress eating like I couldn't stay out of the refrigerator. It was, and I'd gained so much weight. If you've seen a picture of me after, I just tell people that's my half brother Earl, So I'd gained so much weight.
You were also planning on, if I end up in prison, I don't want to be I hear they don't like fat boys too much. So
I didn't want to be pretty. No. I didn't want to be pretty. No.
You weren't going to be wearing the green eyeshadow?
No, they got to beat me.
They're going to have to kill you, right? They're going to have to kill you.
They got to kill this old man.
Yeah, but that's a whole other thing. The physical toll, not just the mental toll.
Yeah,
the physical toll was. How do you even calculate that? And there's no recourse. I mean, you can't go.
Yeah.
If you're just found not guilty, there's no. Okay, well then you sons of bitches are going to pay. You guys did this. You knew what you're doing. You did it on purpose. You knew it was false. You had exculpatory evidence, but there's no recourse, is there?
There was you'll find this kind of funny. There was an article come out, and I didn't realize till a buddy of mine said, "Hey, you're written up in the Gazette." I said, "Really?" I said, "What for?" He said, "Your trial." I said, "Really?" I didn't. He sent it to me, and I found it funny. Local Hot Springs businessman found not guilty, and then I forgot exactly how it said, but in that wording, they put the word kingpin. I found that funny that the judges said it in the article. There, basically indicted as the kingpin of this organization, or it was like a fucking organization I'd created.
That sounds mafioso. I mean, you're part of the mafia or something.
I do wear my hair in my back, so I got a little mafia look. But I found it odd that the judge. I didn't find it odd. I just found it comical that he said that, made that statement, and it was in the paper. So obviously they had interviewed the judge. I found that kind of funny. They had an article about me.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Good old press corps.
I am I'm very grateful. Obviously, I'm very thankful that you were found not guilty, because that could have been
a whole nother podcast.
This would be a whole different conversation. We'd be on the phone and they'd be saying, "Your call with prisoner so and so is about to end." And
no, I would be out. Well, no, I probably wouldn't be out. I'd probably still be in.
You wouldn't be out yet.
I'd still be in.
Yeah, you'd still be in there, man. And
I've been asking your listeners for some commissary money or something.
Yes, hey man, can somebody send me some smokes, man? I need some smokes. I gotta
smokes.
I gotta get. What are some of the nicknames there behind? Yeah, I gotta get Slick some something or another to keep from getting raped in the showers.
Pokey
or
and
something
Nene
like
or something.
Yeah, Pokey and Nene. And man, I tell you,
but it's interesting you said about absolutely. I thank Jesus every day, and but if I find it, I thought a lot about that innocent people that get hooked up like that. I wouldn't be afraid to say that 25 or 30% in the federal system that's innocent.
Stuart Rhodes is convinced it's at least that high of people that are literally bullied into taking a plea deal because they're just bullied. They're bullied into it. And
I'm really hoping that Cash and old Dan can do something good, Because it's an
I don't think
organization
you
that
can
needs to be
fix it.
revamped. You don't
I
think
don't
you
think
can?
you can fix it. No, you can't fix government. All you can do is eliminate it. You can't. People try to fix. Can anybody give me an example of anything in the government that's ever been fixed? You can't. You can't reform. It just takes on a life of its own. Look at public school. Look at how everybody's been trying for decades to fix public. You can't fix
Oh,
public school. You can't fix government agencies. The best you can do, and the best thing to do, is to shut it down. The FBI needs to be shut down. And we
and I
were
don't
kind of
think
told that that's what was going to happen, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
I don't think that every FBI agent is bad. I don't think every police officer is bad. But I think there's some dirty ones within the organization, like there's dirty something in every organization. But
No,
I think
there's
there's
no
really
doubt.
fine. Yeah, I'm a big component of Back in the Blue, and I don't think that I don't think all of them are bad. I think there's some bad apples, but
The vast majority are bad. I'll just tell you that right now. And the reason I know that is because, first of all, the testimony and people like Stuart Rhodes and people like this, they will tell you their stories much like yours. I mean, what do you think about the FBI agents that investigated you? What are your thoughts on them? Are they the good apples or bad apples?
trash.
Yeah, they're trash. No, they're all, unfortunately, and I was a Houston cop. Not all cops are bad, but I will tell you this. I'm not a big fan of cops. They're, I'm just telling you, I know what my experiences were, and I got out. I think good people that are in law enforcement, I don't think they last. I think they get out. I think they go, you know what? I don't. This is not what I signed up for.
Right.
And where are all the whistleblowers?
Yeah.
Where are all these great FBI agents that are really great people in a bad We've had a handful that have been whistleblowers.
Yeah.
But a handful out of tens of thousands of people. So no, I don't buy there's just a few bad apples. I think the whole organization, top to bottom, with the exception of a handful of people, right. The vast majority, vast majority are corrupt pieces of shit. And they've proven it over and over and over. And there's just horror story after Johnny. They locked up grandmothers, cancer patients, that were simply outside of the Capitol building praying. Our grandmothers in front of abortion clinics, not inside, but across the street, across the praying, not and literally being scooped up and treated absolutely horribly.
Yeah.
Horribly.
Yeah.
No, these are not good people, and they've got power, they've got guns, they have badges, and they have corrupt prosecutors that stand behind them and back them up. And here's the worst thing about it. When they do what they do, like they did to you and what they did to Stuart and what they did to, other people, did any of those guys get in trouble?
Of course not.
No. That's why I'm saying there's no all they do is, well, this is what we'll do next time.
Yeah. It makes them a little smarter to get the next innocent guy.
You're dadgum right, man, because all they care about is, what are my statistics? Listen, I worked with cops that used to have contests about who could write the most tickets. Now, that may seem like no big deal. That may seem like innocent until you're the one getting the ticket, of course.
Right.
But are you serious? You're going to go out and you're going to make it a game between you and 2 or 3 other cops who can write the most tickets? Really? That's what this is about. How many people? It's not a good system, and it's really not. And I remember back in the 80s when I was a Houston cop, the economy in Houston was not doing well. This was when oil went down to $5 a barrel or something, and the Houston economy was very reliant on energy. It still is, but not to the point it was back then. And when the bottom fell out of the oil prices, Houston's economy literally went in the toilet. In fact, it was so bad, they were thinking that for the first time, I think it was the first time in Houston's history, they were going to have to start laying off, cops and firemen and things like this. And one of the bright ideas they had was, they gave us, they said we had a quota of tickets we had to write. So in other words, writing tickets would bring in money for the city. And that is so wrong on so many different levels. And I think we had to write 5 tickets per shift. And I was the only, now back then I think we had like 4,000 cops. Now out of that 4,000, obviously a lot of them didn't work the streets. There's lots of different jobs within the police department, support and all these other things. But out of the, from what I understand, and I was good friends with the head of the police officers union, and he knew everybody and all this. And from what I understand, I was the only police officer in the city of Houston that never wrote a ticket. I refused. I just wouldn't do it. And they were so angry with me, so angry. And I would just sit in the back of the where we had a roll call. I was always in the one sitting in the back, and I'd be leaned back in my chair, and I was always, a little bit cocky, and the sergeant be talking about, okay, don't forget your 5 tickets. And I'd be in the back, and I had a little pocket Constitution, and I'd pull it out and I'd put it up, and he'd just go, "Shut the fuck up, Pruitt, just shut up." And he'd just be so angry. And I just say, "This right here, I ain't doing it." And but here's what's terrifying, Johnny. All the other cops, they did.
Fell in line, didn't they?
They did.
Wow.
And this is what's terrifying. And
how long were you a police officer?
Oh, I only lasted almost 6 years, a little over 5 years. And that's what's terrifying. Now, am I saying that all cops are bad? No, I'm not saying all is a big word. What I'm saying is there is a problem with the system. There's a problem. And when you having power, when you give somebody a badge and a gun, I was one of these cops that I didn't hang out with cops. It never was this thing, well, I'm a cop. That was just not me. And I worked in a really bad neighborhood. I worked in an extremely high crime area. And anyway, but I'm telling you, I witnessed, and I never witnessed, cops beating somebody to death or taking money. I never saw anything like criminal activity, that type of corruption. I never saw any of that. Actually, I'm pretty surprised it never did. I didn't. I'm not saying it didn't go on, but I never really saw anything like that. What terrified me is that whole ticket thing, and these cops just going along, and they never stop for a minute and go, so I'm going to stop some guy that's on his way home from work. He's trying to get home. He's tired. He rolls the stop sign, and I'm going to pull him over and give him a ticket that he's going to pay $200 for, that's going to make his insurance go up, simply because I was ordered to do that, instead of stopping him. And if he was polite, and if he was courteous, and he was no sir, yes sir, right, I just say, hey man, look, this is a neighborhood, there's kids, just stop at the stop signs and just let them. Nope, write him a ticket. That's an arrest. That's basically a ticket is an arrest. It's I'm releasing you on your personal recognizance. That's what a ticket is. In lieu of taking you to jail, I'm giving you a ticket. It's an arrest. And cops did it. They did it. And so I'm just saying, folks, you better be careful, and you better be careful what you wish for, and you better start thinking freedom is why do you think they call it a police state? What is a police state?
You're being
and
policed.
So, you're afraid you can't do anything because you're always under threat of being arrested and disappearing, and you can't have that in a free society. And so, But I really do appreciate you joining us today, and
Yeah, man, this has been great. I appreciate you
sharing your story. It's a tragic story. It's a great story. It's a story that needs to be told. I hope people will listen to this. I hope people will pay attention and learn something from it, and realize that, hey, we need to. This is something that needs to be thought about. This is something we need to sit back and go, hey. Is this what we want our society to be? Because my personal belief is I would much rather 20 guilty people go free and not one person that's not guilty to be incarcerated. I think we have to protect the innocent. I'm just a believer in, man, you can't be locking up innocent people.
No.
Even if you lose a couple that are guilty, you've got to put the innocent person first. And if these prosecutors have any sort of evidence,
when you have evidence of someone's innocent, just show it.
We can't do this, and it's happening.
Yeah.
Derek Chauvin is rotting in a prison. He's been shanked 25 times, almost killed. I've talked to his mother. She was in tears. This was last year. Bless her heart, watching her son. That man is living in hell, lost everything. And it's not even that he's innocent. There's no murder victim. There's no murder victim. How is the man rotting in jail convicted of murder when there's no murder victim? How does this happen?
It happened in a liberal state.
Well, it happened in Blue City. It happened. I mean, there's a lot of different, but at the end of the day, that is our criminal justice system at work. And, yours could have been Johnny, you were within a whisper, bro.
I was.
And
I was hanging by threads for sure.
You were hanging by a thread.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, that is a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
And I am glad that you're out. I'm glad that the justice system in your case halfway worked. And I say halfway, the half that you were found not guilty, the other half was a complete disaster. And you were victimized by the system. But I'm glad you're out. I'm glad you didn't go in there. And we're going to have you back because
please do.
No. I want to hear some stories. I want you to tell people about some of your, your hoot owl calling and some of your ranching as a cowboy, and some Bigfoot stories up there in the Ouachita Mountains.
We got some Bigfoot
stories, man. Got some great. So we got some more interviews to do.
Yeah, I'd love to come back to you. I'd like to tell you about my pops and what he went through in World War II. I could make.
Man, you got some great stories.
Your
father was an amazing man. Was a World War II hero during World War II, and you got some great stories. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of that with you, buddy. But again, I wanted to thank you for coming on with us.
I appreciate you, man. This is fun. Just let me know. I'd love to come back.
Outstanding. Well, thank you, folks. Thank you for tuning in to Thoughts from the Trail with Mark. Don't forget the Defiance Daily Show with Roberts and Pruitt every Friday at 11 a.m. Central, live on Rumble. God bless you guys. We got 4th of July coming up this week. And be careful out there celebrating. Have a great time. Be safe. And we'll catch you guys later. God bless you all.